I started this investigation the same way most people experience it, quietly, almost dismissing it at first. That strange sensation at the end of the day, your legs feel heavy, swollen, almost as if they don't belong to you anymore. You sit down expecting relief, but the discomfort lingers. Then comes the subtle pain when walking, the need to stop more often than usual, as if your body is asking for help, but in a language most people ignore. At first, it's easy to blame fatigue, a long day, too much time standing or sitting. But the deeper I looked, the clearer it became. These aren't random sensations. They are signals, precise, calculated warnings that something in your body isn't flowing the way it should. I began noticing patterns that were impossible to ignore. People describing cold feet even in warm environments. That tingling sensation, almost like tiny electric pulses, coming and going without explanation. Numbness that feels harmless, until it starts happening more often. And then, something even more concerning. Subtle changes in skin color, areas becoming pale, slightly bluish, or darker over time. That's when this stopped being a simple curiosity and became something much more serious. Because your body doesn't send signals without a reason. The human circulatory system is designed to be efficient, almost flawless. Blood is constantly moving, delivering oxygen and nutrients while removing waste. But when this flow is disrupted, especially in the legs, everything begins to change. Blood starts to pool. Pressure builds. The veins struggle to push it back toward the heart, and that's when the symptoms begin to show. Swelling, heaviness, pain. That constant feeling of pressure, as if your legs are carrying more than just your weight. What most people don't realize is that this isn't just discomfort. It's often the visible part of a deeper imbalance. An imbalance that has been building silently, day after day, long before the first symptom ever appeared. As I dug deeper, another piece of the puzzle became clear. Modern lifestyle is playing a major role in this silent progression. Long hours sitting, minimal movement, poor dietary habits. These small, everyday choices slowly weaken circulation over time. Muscles become less active, which means they stop helping the veins push blood upward. The result? A gradual buildup that your body tries to compensate for, until it can't anymore. And the most alarming part is this. Millions of people are living with these symptoms daily, without ever questioning what's behind them. They adapt, they normalize, they wait. That's exactly why we left a practical guide in the first link in the description for you to access quickly. Click and check it out, because understanding what's happening inside your body can change everything before it's too late. As this investigation unfolded, the connections became undeniable. Varicose veins, for example, are not just a cosmetic issue. They are a visible sign that your venous system is under stress, that the valves responsible for keeping blood moving in the right direction have started to fail. Night cramps aren't random either. They often indicate that your muscles aren't receiving proper oxygen supply during the hours your body should be recovering. And that persistent heaviness? It's your circulation struggling to keep up with the demands you place on it every single day. All of these point to one central issue: impaired blood return to the heart. And when this process is compromised repeatedly, the consequences go far beyond discomfort. Your energy drops, your mobility is affected, even your overall quality of life begins to decline. In more advanced cases, it can lead to serious vascular conditions that develop quietly, without dramatic symptoms, until they become impossible to ignore. What makes this even more dangerous is how gradual it is. These conditions don't appear overnight. They build slowly, layer by layer, while you adapt to the discomfort, thinking it's normal, thinking everyone feels this way. But your body is keeping track. And every ignored signal allows the problem to grow, deeper, quieter, and harder to reverse. If you're experiencing tingling, numbness, or changes in skin color, your body is trying to show you something important. These are not random occurrences. They are part of a pattern, one that deserves attention before it evolves into something far more serious. We also left a method in the pinned comment for those dealing with these symptoms and wanting to act early. It's worth taking a look. But here's where my investigation took a deeper turn. Because understanding the symptoms wasn't enough. I needed to understand the mechanism behind them. Your legs are constantly working against gravity. Every drop of blood that reaches your feet must find its way back up to your heart. And this return doesn't happen passively. It depends on a complex system involving your veins, tiny one-way valves, and the muscular contractions that occur with every step you take. Every time you walk, your calf muscles act like a pump, compressing the veins and pushing blood upward. It's an elegant system, but also a fragile one. When you spend too much time sitting or standing still, this natural pump slows down dramatically. The valves inside your veins begin to weaken under constant pressure. Over time, they stop closing properly. And when that happens, blood doesn't just move slower. It starts to accumulate in the lower extremities, stretching the vein walls and increasing pressure in ways you can feel, even if you can't see them. That accumulation is what creates the swelling, the heaviness, the tension you feel at the end of the day, the impression that your body is rebelling against you, when in reality, it's simply asking for help. And what surprised me most is how early this process can begin. Many people think this only happens later in life, but in reality, it starts much earlier, quietly shaped by daily habits that seem completely harmless. Sitting too long at a desk, not moving enough between tasks, ignoring those small, fleeting discomforts because they seem insignificant. Even dehydration plays a significant role, making the blood thicker, more viscous, and harder to circulate efficiently through narrow vessels. And the most dangerous part? Your body adapts, until one day, it simply can't anymore. And then I encountered something that almost everyone experiences, but almost no one understands. Temperature. The way heat and cold interact with your circulatory system and what it reveals about the state of your veins and arteries is one of the most telling windows into how your blood is really flowing. Think about what happens on a hot day. You step outside, the temperature rises, and within minutes, your legs begin to feel heavier. The swelling appears faster than usual. Your ankles thicken. Your feet feel sluggish, almost bloated. Most people chalk it up to the heat. They reach for a cold drink, find some shade, and wait for it to pass. But what they're actually witnessing is their circulatory system under thermal stress. Here's the mechanism. When external temperature rises, your body responds by dilating the blood vessels near the skin's surface, a process called vasodilation. This is your body's attempt to release heat and regulate core temperature. Blood moves closer to the skin. More of it pools in the peripheral vessels, including the veins of the legs. And for a circulatory system that is already struggling to return blood efficiently against gravity, this additional volume becomes a significant burden. The valves that were already weakened can't handle the increased pressure. The vein walls stretch further, and the fluid that leaks into surrounding tissue, the source of that swollen, puffy feeling, increases substantially. This is why people with circulation issues consistently feel worse in summer. It's not coincidence, it's physiology. But cold presents its own set of dangers, and in some ways they are more insidious. When temperatures drop, the body does the opposite. It constricts blood vessels to preserve core heat. Blood is redirected away from the extremities, from the hands, the feet, the lower legs, toward the vital organs at the center of the body. For most people, this manifests as cold hands and feet, which seems minor and temporary. But for someone whose circulation is already compromised, this constriction can be severe. The blood flow to the lower extremities drops to levels that cause real tissue stress. Nerves that were already receiving insufficient oxygen become more sensitive. That tingling sensation, those electric pulses most people describe, intensifies. And in more serious cases, the skin changes color. White, then blue, then red as circulation tries to return. The temperature sensitivity of the legs is one of the earliest and most reliable indicators that something in the venous or arterial system deserves attention. Not the dramatic symptoms, not the obvious swelling, but that quiet, persistent inability to regulate comfort in the lower limbs across changing environments. Cold feet in a warm room, swelling that spikes on humid afternoons, legs that ache more in winter than in summer. These are not personality quirks or signs of being sensitive to weather. They are circulatory signals, consistent, patterned, and meaningful. Managing temperature exposure becomes a genuine tool in supporting circulation. Contrast therapy, alternating brief exposure to warmth and cold, has been used for decades in vascular rehabilitation because it trains the blood vessels to dilate and constrict more efficiently, improving their responsiveness over time. Even something as simple as ending a shower with 30 seconds of cool water on the legs can trigger a vascular response that supports venous return. Your body is in constant thermal negotiation, and your legs are always on the front lines of that negotiation. Understanding what temperature does to your circulation doesn't just explain the symptoms you've been experiencing. It gives you a new layer of control, one that most people never knew they had. But as I went deeper, I realized something even more concerning. Poor circulation doesn't explain everything. Because in some cases, these symptoms can point to something far more serious, something hidden beneath the surface that most people never consider. There are situations where arteries begin to narrow, gradually reducing oxygen supply to the legs. And when that happens, pain while walking becomes more than just fatigue. It becomes a warning sign that demands attention. The kind that, if ignored, can lead to irreversible damage. There's also the risk of blood clots developing quietly in the deep veins of the leg, swelling in one leg, unusual warmth, localized discomfort that simply doesn't go away. These are signs that should never be dismissed, because a clot that moves isn't just a leg problem anymore. It becomes a systemic emergency. And yet, most people normalize it. They delay. They adapt. They search for excuses rather than answers. They say it's the weather. They say it's stress. They say it will pass on its own. And that's exactly why understanding this early matters. Because the difference between catching something early and catching it too late can define everything that comes after. But of everything I uncovered in this investigation, there was one element that stood above all others in its power to change the trajectory of circulatory decline. Not a supplement, not a procedure, not a dramatic intervention. Movement. Specific, deliberate, targeted movement, and the precise way it interacts with the mechanics of your venous system. Most people understand, in a vague way, that exercise is good for circulation. But the understanding usually stops there. What I want to share here is something more specific, more immediately applicable. Because once you understand exactly what movement does to your veins, at the mechanical level, the motivation to move stops being about willpower and starts being about simple logic. Here's what's actually happening when you walk. Every time your foot strikes the ground and your calf contracts, it creates a pressure wave inside the veins of your lower leg. This pressure wave is powerful enough to propel blood upward against gravity, through the valves, through the larger vessels, toward the heart. It happens with every single step. It is a literal pump, one that your body built into your legs specifically because it knew that getting blood back up from the feet would require mechanical assistance. This pump is called the calf muscle pump, and it is one of the most important circulatory structures in your body. When it works well, when you're walking regularly, moving throughout the day, keeping the calf muscles active, blood doesn't get the opportunity to pool. Pressure doesn't build in the lower veins. The valves aren't subjected to the sustained load that weakens them over time. But when it's inactive, when you sit for hours without moving, the pump stalls. And without that mechanical push, blood accumulates. Pressure builds. The valves begin to fail, and the symptoms begin. This is why consistent, low-intensity walking is the single most impactful thing most people with circulation problems can do. Not intense exercise, not running. Walking, because walking is the specific motion that activates the calf muscle pump with every step. But there's more. Ankle circles activate the calf and the muscles around the ankle joint, creating the same pump effect as walking without requiring full mobility. Calf raises compress the deep veins of the calf with each contraction, generating powerful upward pressure. Leg elevation uses gravity itself as a circulatory tool, allowing blood that has been pooling in the lower extremities to drain passively back toward the heart. And never sitting still for more than 45 minutes without standing and taking at least a short walk, not because of the calories burned, but because of the pump. The body was not designed for stillness. Every structure involved in circulatory return was built with the assumption of regular, consistent movement. When that movement disappears, the system begins to fail. And when it returns, even partially, even gradually, the system responds. Because it was always waiting for exactly that. Taking care of your circulation is not just about relieving discomfort. It's about protecting how your body functions at its most fundamental level. Circulation supports everything: your energy, your cognitive clarity, your recovery after physical activity, your body's ability to regulate temperature, fight inflammation, and repair itself. When it starts to decline, the impact spreads gradually into every area of your life. That heaviness in your legs reduces your willingness to move, and when you move less, circulation weakens further. It's a cycle, quiet, persistent, and self-reinforcing. The swelling makes simple activities feel more demanding. Standing becomes uncomfortable. Walking distances you once enjoyed start to feel like challenges, and slowly, without realizing it, you begin to shrink your world to fit your discomfort. Over time, your body begins to operate below its full potential. Not because something catastrophic happened, but because small signals were overlooked and small habits were never corrected. But here's the key. Many of these effects are preventable. Small daily actions, consistent movement, proper hydration, postural awareness can support your system before the problem grows beyond manageable. You don't need to overhaul your entire life overnight. You don't need perfection. You need consistency. And you need the right information at the right time. Because when you take care of your circulation early, you're not just avoiding symptoms. You're preserving the quality of your life. The kind of quality that lets you move freely, think clearly, and feel present in your own body. But there was one aspect of this investigation that I hadn't fully considered at first. And when I found it, everything became even clearer. Sleep. That seemingly passive state your body enters every night, the one most people treat as optional, negotiable, something to be shortened whenever life gets busy. What I discovered is that sleep plays a far more critical role in your circulatory health than almost anyone realizes. While you sleep, your body enters a state of active repair. Blood pressure drops, heart rate slows, and your circulatory system uses this window, this precious, irreplaceable window, to do the work it couldn't complete during the day. Vessels dilate. Blood flows more freely. Inflammatory processes that were triggered during waking hours begin to resolve. And the tissues in your legs, which spent hours fighting gravity, finally receive the full, unobstructed delivery of oxygen and nutrients they need to recover. But here's where it gets complicated. When sleep is disrupted or consistently insufficient, this repair process is cut short. Night after night, the work goes unfinished. The inflammation doesn't fully resolve. The vessels don't get the rest they need. And slowly, the system that was designed to heal itself begins to accumulate damage instead. When you don't sleep well, your body releases higher levels of cortisol, the stress hormone. And cortisol, when elevated chronically, causes blood vessels to constrict. It increases inflammation in the vessel walls. It makes the blood itself more prone to clotting. And it disrupts the delicate hormonal balance that helps regulate fluid retention, which is why people who sleep poorly often wake up with swollen ankles, puffy legs, and that heavy, waterlogged feeling that takes hours to subside. The way you sleep directly affects how blood circulates through your legs overnight. Sleeping on your back with legs flat can allow blood to pool in the lower extremities, especially if venous return is already compromised. Elevating your legs slightly, even with a pillow placed under the calves, can make a measurable difference in how much swelling you wake up with. And sleeping on the left side reduces pressure on the vena cava, the large vein responsible for returning blood from the lower body to the heart. Less pressure on that vessel means better flow. Better flow means less accumulation overnight. And the cycle is self-reinforcing in a way that's almost cruel. Poor circulation makes it harder to sleep, because the discomfort, the leg cramps, the restless sensations that come from blood pooling in the lower limbs disturb sleep quality, and poor sleep makes circulation worse. Round and round it goes, quietly compounding. What this means is that protecting your sleep isn't just about feeling rested. It's about giving your circulatory system the time it needs to function as it was designed. Every hour of quality sleep is an hour your body uses to push back against the damage that accumulates during the day. It stops being a luxury. It becomes maintenance. Essential, non-negotiable maintenance for the system that keeps everything else running. And then came a part of this investigation that surprised me more than anything else I had uncovered. Because when I started looking at what people were eating, and how it connected to what they were feeling in their legs, the picture that emerged was both alarming and, in a strange way, hopeful. What you consume every single day has a direct, measurable impact on how your blood flows, how your vessel walls behave, and how much inflammation your circulatory system is forced to manage. This isn't abstract nutrition science. This is the chemistry of your veins playing out in real time. Sodium. Most people know that too much salt causes water retention, but the mechanism goes deeper than simple bloating. When sodium levels in the bloodstream are consistently high, your body retains water to dilute the concentration, and that retained fluid accumulates in the tissues, particularly in the lower extremities where gravity pulls it. The result is the kind of swelling that feels tight, persistent, and disproportionate to any physical activity you did that day. Then, there's refined sugar, and its relationship with circulation is one of the most underappreciated connections in all of vascular health. When blood sugar spikes repeatedly, it triggers inflammatory responses in the vessel walls. Over time, this chronic low-grade inflammation stiffens the vessels, reduces their elasticity, and compromises the delicate valves inside the veins. What was once a flexible, responsive system becomes rigid and sluggish. Processed foods contribute to a state of systemic inflammation that the circulatory system bears directly. The blood becomes more viscous, and the inner lining of blood vessels becomes more vulnerable to damage. But the same system that responds so negatively to these inputs responds just as powerfully to the right ones. Flavonoids, found in dark berries, citrus fruits, and red grapes, have been studied for their role in strengthening vein walls and reducing the permeability that leads to fluid leakage into surrounding tissue. Magnesium plays a critical role in muscle function, including the smooth muscle tissue that lines blood vessels. When it's insufficient, cramps become more frequent and circulation becomes less efficient. Omega-3 fatty acids reduce the inflammatory markers that damage vessel walls and help maintain the fluidity of the blood itself. And water. Simply water. Dehydration is one of the most common and most overlooked contributors to poor circulation. When the body is consistently underhydrated, blood volume decreases and viscosity increases. The heart works harder, the vessels constrict, and the blood that is supposed to be delivering oxygen and removing waste from your legs becomes thick, slow, and inefficient. What you put into your body every day is either building the conditions for healthy circulation or slowly dismantling them. Not dramatically, not overnight, but with the quiet consistency of compounding chemistry, one meal, one choice, one day at a time. And understanding that is not a reason for guilt. It's a reason for clarity. Because clarity is where change begins. As I reached the final layer of this investigation, I found myself confronting something that most people prefer not to think about directly. Time. The way aging interacts with your circulatory system, and why the changes that happen quietly across years and decades make the signals we've been discussing not just more common, but more urgent. Your veins age, not the way your skin ages, with visible lines and shifting texture. They age from the inside, invisibly, gradually. In your 20s and 30s, the vein walls are elastic. They expand and contract efficiently. The valves open and close with precision. The collagen and elastin fibers that give veins their structure are abundant, responsive, and resilient. But with time, something shifts. The collagen fibers begin to stiffen. The elastin slowly breaks down and is replaced less efficiently. The valves, subjected to decades of pressure, begin to lose their integrity. They don't close as tightly as they once did. And when a valve fails to close completely, blood slides backward instead of forward, and that backward movement is the fundamental mechanism behind varicose veins, chronic venous insufficiency, and the progressive worsening of every symptom we've been exploring. This is not a sudden failure. It is a slow degradation, so slow that most people don't notice it happening. They simply notice, at some point in their 40s or 50s, that their legs feel different at the end of the day than they used to. Heavier, more swollen, slower to recover, and they attribute it to getting older, which is partly true, but entirely incomplete. Because what's happening isn't just aging, it's aging without intervention, and the difference between those two paths can be measured in decades of quality, mobility, and comfort. What the research consistently shows is that the rate of venous wall deterioration is not fixed. Movement preserves the elasticity of vessel walls and maintains valve function. Hydration maintains blood viscosity at a level that doesn't strain the vessel walls. Anti-inflammatory nutrition reduces the chronic low-grade inflammation that degrades collagen and elastin over time. And stress management keeps cortisol levels from triggering the vascular constriction that speeds up structural aging from the inside. These are not just lifestyle choices. They are decisions about how quickly your veins age. As the venous system ages, the margin for error narrows. A young, elastic vein can handle extended sitting, occasional dehydration, and a high-sodium meal without producing noticeable symptoms, because it has enough reserve capacity to compensate. But an aging vein has no such reserve. Every insult matters more. Every missed recovery opportunity costs more. This is why symptoms that were absent at 30 appear at 45. It's not that you suddenly developed a problem. It's that the accumulated effect of years of small habits finally exceeded the capacity of a gradually aging system to compensate. You cannot stop time, but you can change what time does to your veins. The body you are living in today is the youngest it will ever be from this point forward. And what you choose to do with that body, starting now, will determine the quality of the years that follow in ways that go far deeper than most people ever realize. And as I continued, one truth became undeniable. Your habits are either helping your circulation or slowly working against it. Every single day. Movement activates your body's natural pump. Inactivity slows it down and lets pressure build where it shouldn't. Hydration supports flow and keeps blood moving efficiently. Neglect thickens it and makes every beat of your heart work harder than it should. Even your posture matters. Crossing your legs for long periods. Sitting in positions that compress the veins behind your knees. Wearing tight clothing that restricts blood flow at the waist or thighs. These small, unconscious choices compound quietly, invisibly, over months and years. Every small decision adds up, and every ignored signal gives the problem more time to take root. There was one final layer to this investigation, one I almost overlooked, because it lives in a space most people don't associate with physical health. The connection between chronic stress, emotional burden, and circulatory decline. It sounds abstract at first, almost philosophical, but the biology is precise, measurable, and impossible to dismiss once you understand it. When your body perceives stress, whether it's the pressure of a difficult job, the weight of financial worry, the tension of unresolved conflict, or simply the relentless pace of modern life, it activates a cascade of physiological responses that were designed for short-term survival. Your adrenal glands release adrenaline and cortisol. Your heart rate increases. Your blood vessels constrict, redirecting blood toward the muscles and away from the extremities. And your blood itself becomes more prone to clotting. In short bursts, this response is life-saving. But chronic stress, the kind that doesn't end when the threat passes, because the threat is your daily life, keeps this system activated indefinitely. And when your blood vessels are in a near-constant state of constriction, the cumulative damage to their walls is significant. The inner lining, called the endothelium, becomes inflamed. Its ability to regulate blood flow, prevent clot formation, and signal the surrounding muscles deteriorates. And the legs, already working against gravity, become the part of the body that feels this deterioration most acutely. The heaviness, the tension, the swelling that seems to appear even on days when you haven't done much physically. It's not imagination. It's the circulatory consequence of a nervous system that has been in emergency mode for far too long. Chronic stress changes behavior. It disrupts sleep. It alters eating patterns. It reduces physical activity. And it increases alcohol and caffeine consumption, both of which affect vascular tone and fluid balance in ways that compound the problem further. Stress doesn't just feel bad. It creates the exact conditions in which poor circulation thrives. But if stress is a driver, then managing it is not just a mental health intervention. It is a circulatory one. Research on relaxation responses shows measurable changes in vascular behavior. Blood pressure decreases. Cortisol levels drop. The endothelium begins to recover its function. Blood flow to the extremities improves. And people report, consistently, a reduction in the very symptoms we've been exploring: the heaviness, the swelling, the discomfort that had become such a familiar part of their days. Your circulatory system is not separate from your stress. It is one of its primary targets. And your legs, heavy at the end of the day, swollen by evening, aching through the night, are not just tired. They are telling you something about the full weight of what your body has been carrying. And then came the most important realization of all. Ignoring these signs doesn't make them disappear. It only gives them time. Over time, what starts as mild discomfort becomes more frequent. The heaviness appears earlier in the day. The swelling lingers longer into the night. The tingling becomes something you plan around rather than something you question. And without fully noticing, it becomes part of your routine, part of who you think you are, when it was never supposed to be. Not because something sudden happened, but because small signals were overlooked, for just a little too long. And if you've made it this far, it means something here connected with you. Maybe you felt these symptoms yourself. Maybe you recognized someone you love in these words. Maybe you've been noticing things lately that you haven't been ready to name yet. And that awareness, that moment of recognition, already puts you ahead of most people. If you want to understand how to support your circulation in a safe, natural, and practical way, we left a guide in the first link in the description. Take a look. It was put together specifically for people who are paying attention to these signals and want to act before it becomes urgent. Because sometimes, the right information at the right time doesn't just relieve discomfort. It changes the entire direction of what comes next. And if you want to keep learning how to recognize these signals early and stay ahead of what your body has been trying to tell you, make sure to subscribe to the channel, because this is just the beginning.